Where's Steve Robbins?
He's on.
I am here with you all virtually here on Zoom.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our September 14th, 2022 Planning Board meeting. Would you please join me, rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Steve, would you be kind enough to take the roll call?
Absolutely. Chairman John Curry,
Here.
Vicki Gannon,
Here.
Nancy Garbino.
Here.
No, Dennis McNamara is absent. Jack Mattis,
Here.
Bruce Prince,
Here.
and Christopher Zaberto.
Here. Thank you. First on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the August 10th, 2022 Planning Board meeting. Any changes, corrections that anybody saw?
No.
If not,
I make a motion to accept the minutes as drafted.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
And tonight, we have a project review of the Dish Wireless at 294 Route 100, and it's the application for special use permit for the wireless telecommunications facility. This application is for a special use permit to collect dish wireless antennas, radios, and cabling on an existing monopole tower and an equipment cabinet on a steel platform with new underground fiber to Route 138. And for the record, this property is in the OB 100 zoning district. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is David Kenny. I'm an attorney with Snyder and Snyder, here tonight to represent the applicant Dish Wireless. As the chairman just stated, the proposed application is for Dish to co-locate below the existing carriers on the facility and to install their equipment within the existing fence compound. Since our first submission, we received comments from both the planner and the town's engineer. We did submit a responsive submission, which included a short EAF, radio frequency coverage maps, copies of Dish FCC licenses, as well as revised construction documents. Since that time, we received an additional comment from Mr. Robbins stating that due to the trenching that a erosion and sediment control application will need to be obtained. We are in the process of filing and submitting for that. There was a question about how we would know there wouldn't be any rock removal required for this trenching. We know that because we're trenching in the same area that the previous co-located carriers have their utilities run through. So we're going in a pre-disturbed area, but we are working to submit that application to the town for a sediment and erosion control permit, and we will have sediment and erosion control measures included in our site plans. We did most recently submit an electronic copy of our site plans to Mr. Robbins for review. We're having a couple of comments being revised based on the amount of land disturbance that's expected and the total amount of cubic yards of soil to be removed. We believe, again, it'll be negligible because we're going in an area that was previously disturbed, and it's just for the trenching of the conduits. It's not actually a full, a basement or anything larger that would require a significant amount of soil removal. I also was provided a copy of a draft resolution. We sent that to Dish Wireless. They have no comments or any objections to any of the conditions of approval in the resolution. And we're here tonight to answer any questions that the board may have.
Let's hear first from Mr. Robbins.
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Kenny, for the correspondence on this matter. As you correctly stated, because of the area of disturbance, despite it being just a trench, it does trip that threshold that requires an erosion sediment control plan. The drawing put together by your engineer has appropriate erosion and sediment controls, and it's just a matter of getting the paperwork for that application into the town for the engineering technician's review. But barring that, everything else seems to be in order. In our comment memo, there were 3 items. They're listed as 2D, E, and F. Basically, a description of the level of service for the application, roaming agreements, and radio frequency drive test results. Those are all items that to the planning board that are at your discretion, whether to ask for in accordance with town code or to waive for the nature of this application. So I'll highlight those for you for action this evening.
Just as a response to that, in our submission, we included a detailed cover letter where we did discuss how, as this application is what is known as an eligible facilities request, items related to coverage maps and information relating to minimum levels of service are all preempted for these types of applications. However, as a showing of good faith, DISH did provide coverage maps and radio frequency coverage information to show what the coverage objectives for this co-location are. The additional information regarding drive test and roaming agreements, all of that we've submitted in our cover letters preempted by federal law. So that's why we didn't submit those applications. Generally, that's information that this town used to determine whether or not a facility should be built, or whether or not a facility is needed. As this facility is already constructed, DISH is actually just co-locating with existing carriers at an existing facility. So the review for a minimum level of service, the review for roaming agreements, and all those other requirements are not necessary for a review related to whether or not this applicant has created a substantial change to this existing facility, which is really what the focus of this review should be.
Steve, do you want to comment on that?
I think that our request for those are consistent with what is in the town code for these facilities, and that's the purview of our review. Given the relationship between federal requirements and the town code, I would defer to the planning board's attorney and planner for more detailed direction on that. I know this is a common occurrence, a common statement when these co-locations have come up.
I'm just worried that we set a precedent for future applications if we don't adhere to what we believe is the code at the moment.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, in the past, you have asked for specific information, particularly when DISH has been before you previously. And DISH has typically provided, and for other carriers as well, when you have a new facility, and they have provided that information as part of your purview, and you have waived certain requirements such as the pieces of information that Mr. Kenny has outlined before. So I don't think you're setting a precedent. I think you're asking for, and particularly the coverage maps, because this is a new facility, we wanted to make sure that the town had the information available to it, and this information has been shared with your telecommunications subcommittee, or the task force. Thank you, so that everybody has the most up-to-date information as possible. And I think it's a sign of good faith that DISH has been providing the information, and along with Mr. Kent and his firm, that the town is required, even though there is this federal oversight on the applications. But I think we've tried to have a collegial relationship as part of these applications. I think the information that is most pertinent and most important has been requested by Mr. Robbins, and I think that most of it has been responded to, and Mr. Kenny has indicated that they're in the process of responding to the balance of that request.
I don't want to put you on the spot. It's short notice.
I hear what you say that they've been in compliance, but the past is that they do respond to these requests, and now they're not going to. Is that what your suggestion is?
No, I think the issue is that there are certain pieces of information like the coverage maps, which the applicant has indicated that because of the federal oversight, they don't need to necessarily provide, but they're doing it as a sign of good faith because this is part of the understanding of how this facility fits into the overall.
What I don't understand is what are they not providing that Mr. Robbins is asking for? Specifically, what are they refusing or saying they're not going to provide?
Sure, absolutely. So there's three different things as Mr. Robinson's memo discusses. They're asking for a report describing the minimum level of service deemed satisfactory by the applicant and a description of the applicant's network design philosophy and the applicant's link budget. That we're not providing. A report detailing all roaming agreements, enabling the applicant to access other wireless telecommunications providers' networks, which have any coverage in the town or the coverage gap area. We're not providing that. And then radio frequency drive test results for the site shall be provided to make the information usable. Both RF drive tests and propagation plots shall conform to the town code requirements 170-129.8P. And then finally, a statement of anticipated on-site service needs, including frequency of service visits. So actually, we did respond to that one. It's really just D, E, and F that we did not respond to. And again, the reason why we're not responding to those is because it's fairly clear that federal law has said that as an eligible facilities request, local governments cannot require application materials that's not reasonably related to determining whether or not the co-location is a substantial change as defined by the federal law. And it goes on to further state that specifically business decisions or business reasons such as coverage maps cannot be required as an application item. However, noting that the inquiry to the coverage maps was solely related to what is the coverage from this facility going to be and what is the coverage footprint that should be achieved by this facility, we provided that as a good faith effort or good faith showing that this is, the coverage that's being provided. However, it's specifically preempted under federal law.
Well, my response to that is I haven't looked at the federal law specifically as regards this, but I would ask if the chairman or Mr. Robbins knows when other parties have co-located on this, have they provided the information that Mr. Robbins has sought from Dish?
It is this planning board has on an individual basis for other co-location requests waived these requirements, but it's been handled on a case-by-case basis.
Right. And let me just shed some light into that. The reason why we kind of didn't glance over that in this case is because Dish is a new provider and they're providing a new technology. As far as we know, they're entering into a market that wasn't previously their wheelhouse. They were a satellite TV provider, and now they're getting into cellular. So we wanted to ensure that their components and things along those lines fit into that cellular network, that it was safe for our residents to deal with the amount of RF exposure and things along those lines. Now, the coverage maps and those other infrastructure issues were because the town has identified cellular coverage being poor within Somers in certain areas. And we generated a cellular task force, telecommunications task force, to specifically address those things. They act as a guidance to us on the planning board to be able to navigate through presentations like these. And so that is why in this particular instance, as opposed to, let's say, a Verizon or an AT&T who wants to just add a couple of extra antennas into an already established service at an already co-located monopole, we wanted to just go an extra step to cover all bases because this is new to Dish. And we just wanted to get as much information as we could so that we can make a good decision for the town.
So when Mr. Robbins says case by case, this is a special case because Dish is not just bringing in TV networks, it's getting into cellular.
Correct.
And your subcommittee has requested this information in this case.
Correct. It
So,
was asked for.
What the best I can say is that
I guess
would-
just a point of clarification on that. It is a pre-existing part of town code, not a specific request from the telecommunications task force. So we're reviewing this application as a new telecommunications facility because that is the mechanism within the town code for review of any substantial modification, new or modification to a site plan or telecommunications facility approval. Requires a list of things in the town code, and on other applications, the planning board has made a determination as to which of those it needs to make its findings for the matter at hand, that site plan modification or special use permit in this case for the telecommunications facility. So it may waive these requirements or not, but that's not, that's up to the board.
Mr. Robbins, I understand this, but now you're seeing me here and I am sort of pointed in my questions. What
Please.
is your recommendation? Should I get on, should we, when we adjourn this matter, so I can be in touch with Mr. Kenny more specifically? Or is it your recommendation that the board waives certain of these three things you have listed here, D, E, and F? Are any of them, in your opinion, should be waived? Or should the town stand firm on them because of Dish's situation as a new provider?
As an engineer, I think that these are elements that the planning board can waive if it so chooses. I don't think that these are necessary for the approval of the special use permit for the facility, but that is certainly the planning board's discretion to require them in accordance with town code.
And just to add to that, if it helps at
Sounds like
all.
we have two attorneys here tonight.
It does, it does.
I represented Sprint on a co-location where they were a new carrier coming to a facility, and we weren't required to provide coverage maps at that time. The board can change decision for each application, but as far as a concern regarding precedent, in the past, we have admitted carriers when they're new co-locators to facilities to not submit RF coverage maps information. We did submit
Let me
the,
ask you, what do you think? You probably have the most knowledge on this on the board.
That being because I'm one of the members of the telecommunications task force. I'm not an engineer. I think that the applicant has done a diligent job in presenting as much information as they can without crossing into proprietary lines. I'm sure that that's where a lot of this comes from. We are concerned because it is a new venture, right? So, Dish, while it's an established name, it's not in the cellular industry. And I think that's where a lot of the task force members just wanted to know what it was that the town was looking at with this. Whereas you're right about Sprint, but Sprint is an established cellular network provider. So that's the nuance to this particular application, which is kind of what triggered us to want to request a lot of this information where in the past it's been waived. To answer your question, I'm comfortable with those three items not being submitted to allow me to help make a decision, hopefully unanimously with you guys for the applicant's presentation.
Yeah. John, I have a question.
Sure.
I don't understand why you're treating a new person different than an established person in the effect that we should be treating everybody equally. And if we request,
this applicant has never, that Dish has not been in this business before. That's why.
Yeah, but it's okay. I don't think that's, I assume that the federal government rules are because we're asking for something that doesn't necessarily have to be provided. And I'm not sure why it has to be provided, even though they are a new facility. That depends on won't that depend on the people who end up using their facility?
Well, usually,
That's us.
and Jerry, you can correct me on this, but usually town code supersedes the federal if we so choose.
No.
absolutely
No?
not.
No,
That's wrong. That's why I wondered whether.
But only in this case, right? In other like stormwater and things like that, doesn't town?
The town can be stricter.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I'm getting at.
The town can be stricter.
We can be
Yes,
stricter.
you can.
No.
But with the wireless problem.
No.
Preempt.
Okay.
There's a difference.
I stand corrected.
Between being preempted and more restrictive.
Okay.
Now, just one issue, just so we we have a member who's on Zoom. A board member
Yeah.
is on Zoom.
Yep.
You
Yes.
you are aware that as of midnight, he cannot vote or participate. He could,
He's in a public
He's in a public
He's in a
case.
It was noticed.
it was noticed.
Yes, it was.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah. Yes. He
okay,
knows
okay,
that.
Okay,
Yeah. It
okay.
was noticed.
Yeah, I wanted to ask
The
that.
planning office sent that out,
That
and he
everybody.
is in a public location.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as we're on that subject, a public notice was issued that he's in a public place known as, what do you call it?
Heritage
Heritage-
Heritage Hills Visiting Center.
Okay.
The quandary is who decides it's a public place?
You probably rolling, but I will say, is that public?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. People
okay.
can go there. But it is getting a little tighter and getting back to the fact.
Is the point so that someone could have access to that
I
person?
don't know the governor's point. Yes, that was the point, that somebody could have access.
They
to
could
it
have
and
access
Go and watch him.
and watch him, okay.
And make sure someone's not, handing him money for his decision on the other side of the camera. That's really.
Whatever it is.
Or physically coercing him.
Yeah.
into
I'm
his
sorry to
decision.
eat into your time.
No,
that's
absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to make clear. 'cause
Yeah.
You have nothing else on the agenda.
Yeah. I'd like to hear the rest of the board member comments on this issue too, please.
I
There
have
is
one
a-
more,
Sure.
I have one more comment, John. They're talking about retrenching an area that already has utilities. I'm assuming that this is not going to be done by machinery, and it's going to be done by hand? Or what, does the attorney know what procedure they're going to use? Because usually when you retrench in an area that already has utilities, you have to be careful that you don't destroy the existing utilities. And that's the reason why that's done is usually it's done by hand. So I just like to bring that point up.
The point's well received. I don't know if they're going to use shovels or a backhoe, but in our application to Mr. Robbins for the sediment and erosion control permit, I'll make sure that that is clarified.
Thank you.
I'm comfortable with taking our action in the same manner as Chris Roberto suggested. I think he's correct. I am also a member of the Somers Telecommunications Task Force, as is Chris. I have that honor, if you will, and I'm comfortable going ahead.
I agree. I have no problem.
Okay,
I
Bruce.
got no problem.
All right, then I'll make a motion that we direct staff to prepare a resolution.
I think we need to debate a public hearing now.
Yeah, well, we're gonna waive the public.
Oh, I'm
hearing.
sorry, we do have to waive the public.
Yeah.
Are you,
We do
everybody
that with a
comfortable with
vote?
waiving the public hearing?
We should.
All
do
right,
a
I'll make a
vote.
motion and that we waive the
I'm
public
actually
hearing.
not, for the record. I'm not okay with waiving the public
Oh,
hearing.
well, I am.
And it's for the reasons that I stated, that this is a new technology with a new
I understand.
provider. There may be members of town that have questions for the applicant regarding what type of technology, what can we expect from it, what sort of output there is. And so
Well,
that's
we could have a public hearing at the next meeting and open and close and still do the resolution at the next meeting. So are you okay with that?
Absolutely. Since
Then why-
put
then
us
why
on the
don't-
same time frame, we can do
Yeah,
that.
I'll make a motion. We schedule a public hearing for our next meeting. And is there a second on that? All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll make a motion that we direct staff to prepare a resolution, hopefully for the next meeting. And since you've done so well in the past, I know it will be done by the October meeting. You've created a monster yourself. Is there a second on that?
I'll
All in
second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What is the date of the next meeting? Just so I know.
October 12th.
12th. And then is it a 10-day notice provision? How early in advance do I have to get the notices, or should I work with Denise or Okay. with Wendy?
With Wendy,
Okay.
yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have anything they would like to bring up tonight?
Just on the Zoom issue, does that apply on the Zoom, the change in the Zoom rules? Does that apply to consultants as well?
No,
Okay.
only members. Correct me on that? It's just members that the,
Members of committees or boards.
Right.
People who.
only.
The applicants and people in the public can be on Zoom.
Technically, you can Zoom
Yes,
and so could Dave. Okay,
well,
that's the way I was explained to me. Yeah.
Can it be further explained?
And we're the only ones not paid.
This is just a continuation of what we had in the past. This was the same thing we had in the past. This is, she just revised it and brought it back up to date. We've done this before.
In
This
a
is nothing
public
new.
place?
And
Okay.
it's been a public place. Do you remember you and Jack used to meet in Heritage in the past?
Yeah,
This is no different than what we had before,
Except we didn't issue notices.
except we did not issue notices, correct?
Yes, we have to issue notice now.
Yes. And I believe it's all boards, if I'm not mistaken.
All boards,
And
all
committees.
towns, it's not just.
Yeah, right. All right, unless there's anything else, our next meeting is October 12th, 2022, 7:30. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.